Our next guest is the BYU football and basketball beat writer for the Deseret News. He joined the Deseret News after 30 years covering sports for the Salt Lake Tribune, the rival paper that's like going from the Utes to the Cougs.
Yeah.
Our pleasure to welcome Jay Drew to the Wise Guys tonight. Hey, Jay, first of all, while we're on the pie topic, what's your top go-to pie?
Probably pecan.
We were just making fun of pecan pies.
We just said no pecan pie.
My wife makes this pina colada type pie with coconut and pineapple. It's pretty good too.
Ooh,
That
now
sounds
see,
like
now
a tropical pie. Is that pina colada?
I could wrap my head around pina colada pie. I definitely could do that.
Jay, before we ask you another question, what is that over your head?
Well, my wife's also into bees, bumblebees and that. So that's I guess that's a wasp or a bee. But
All right.
if I were to pan out the rest of the room, you'd see a bunch of beehives and whatnot. That's kind of her thing to collect.
Okay, all
That's
right.
cool.
So it's like an attack bee right
it's
there.
bee
She's
art.
also a green thumb. She's pretty good at growing these indoor
So
plants.
is that plant behind you real? That's not a plastic plant?
Yeah, that's real.
That's nice.
Oh, man.
You got a real plant alive in
Like
the
you're
late
kind
November.
of in a jungle surrounded by bees. This is good stuff.
That's awesome. Hey, you were on the field at the end of that game on Saturday. Give us a firsthand account of what that was like.
Yeah, as you guys know, they bring the kind of the print guys down with about 4 minutes left in the game, so we're not, clogged in the elevator when when the game's over from the press box. So we were down there, and basically the first field rush storming was crazy, and then we actually got on the sideline, and that's where I was, where I took a couple of videos. I was right there where, not 20 feet away from where Chase Roberts caught that Hail Mary. But I mean, I've been in this business 35 years and I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen worse crowd control, worse security at a major sporting event in my life. It was almost as if some of the security guys and gals didn't care. They ended up putting up a kind of a yellow rope and to try to make sure, BYU players and coaches could get off the field. That worked a little bit, but it was just mass chaos. It was crazy. It's been written in other places before, but I mean, hats off to the BYU staff and players for keeping their cool. There easily could have been an incident. It was just people in other people's faces, screaming obscenities at them, clapping. I tell people the video that I put up, if you haven't seen it yet, is it's pretty tame compared to what I could have put up.
Really?
As far as the language goes and all that. Some people are saying, hey, it's just one kid that got arrested. What's the big deal? It was just the sheer madness of it all, that something, and that's why I had my phone rolling, is I think something really ugly could have happened very, very easily. And the fact that it didn't is a testament, really, not to the security. They couldn't have stopped a thing. It was a testament to these BYU personnel and players who kept their cool amidst all this madness.
Jay, we were talking about it earlier, and I said I don't like the idea of fans coming onto the field. Like in the NFL, if a person tries to get on the field, they just get decked immediately and dragged out of there, right? So nobody comes on the field in the NFL because they're very serious about security, and it's not safe for players to have people, who knows who's coming out of those stands. There's crazy people. And I was saying, I'm not upset with the fans that came down to celebrate, but there were a fair amount of fans that didn't come down to celebrate. They came down to get in BYU's faces and to taunt and to do that. And to me, there's no place in the game for that. That wasn't just one or two people from what I could see, but you were there on the field. Was there enough of that you felt it was way over the top?
Oh, yeah, there were hundreds that were basically, by this time, Arizona State was over by their bench celebrating, and there were literally, BYU was on pretty much the other side and on the other end even, and there were, hundreds of people lined up against that yellow rope that they had put up, just, yelling all sorts of things, flipping off players. There were a couple of BYU players and coaches that really, and you guys have probably seen the videos, I don't want to name names or anything, that really had to be restrained from going after some of these. some of these fans that were literally 3 feet away from them and only separated by this flimsy yellow rope. So,
Jay, as best as you can tell, why wasn't there a penalty on the intentional grounding call at the end of the game, or on the Sun Devils for the fans coming onto the field before the game was over, including their mascot, or on Kenny Dillingham for berating the officials with F-bombs after he was told there was 1 second on the clock? I don't know when that's ever acceptable, but there was no that could have got BYU a few more yards, which would have helped for a Hail Mary. But just in that mess, why were there any penalties?
It was so chaotic. And if you look at it where the referees were trying to review the film to see if there was 1 second left or not, I mean, there were literally fans all around and players and coaches from Arizona State. And I just couldn't imagine what had happened if he had thrown a flag in that melee and that mass of people. Just what would have happened to that referee. But, I don't know the answer to the question. Kalani was asked about it after, and he said that originally one of the referees said something about illegal or grounding. And then he said another one came over and told him that they had heard from the league office and that there was not going to be an unsportsmanlike penalty called on the fans for rushing the field. And so that's really all we know. A delay of game could have been another option, but there was nothing of the sort. So it was just one of those things. I don't think it cost BYU the game by any stretch. I mean,
right.
It was really a pure stupidity of game management, clock management by Arizona State that even allowed the final to happen.
How do you get the ball to 7?
I mean,
you turn it over at the 50.
Honestly, I've never seen
trying to run the clock out.
We were sitting there going, "What are they doing here?" But in your opinion, Jay, should the league do something about this? I mean, we saw Harlan come onto the field for Utah, and they reprimanded and they fined him. Do you see the league doing anything? And make it, even commenting on what happened at the end of that game? Because they certainly can't condone that and say that that's okay. It's just like giving people permission to do that in the future.
Yeah, I don't see them happening. I think if it would have happened, it would have happened earlier today, Monday. Their silence on the matter has been pretty telling. I would be stunned if something happens now, if they come out now. I think the time to do it would have been this morning, first thing this morning. Mm-hmm. I'd have to go back and look at when the reprimand came for Harlan. I think it was even Sunday night.
I think you're right. I think you're right.
Positive. So to answer your question, they haven't even announced a fine for storming the field, which I think it's $50,000 in the Big 12. I'm not positive, but they haven't even announced that. And I've been anxiously awaiting that because maybe they'll fine them twice because they stormed the field twice.
That's true. Double whammy.
That's right.
Deseret News sports writer Jay Drew is on the Wise Guys, presented by Brady Plus and distributed by the Deseret News. Maybe the bigger question for this team, Jay, is why they can't get their act together and play a complete game in the biggest games of the year. Kansas, Arizona State, and now here comes Houston.
Yeah, and even before that, Utah, they got off to a really slow start as well. I don't know what it is. Can't put my finger on it. I had a reader today tell me he thought they just came out too tight, that the whole pressure has kind of gotten to them a little bit of what's on the line, and it's taken them, in some instances, a whole half to kind of get their feet wet and get going, get rid of the butterflies, jitters. It's just a different team than we saw at UCF. They were... until the fourth quarter when they kind of got conservative and settled for some field goals, they were clicking on all cylinders the first 3 quarters of that game. That was, I think, their best performance of the year. And for some reason, they just have not been able to rekindle that until the second half against Arizona State the other night. I think maybe they figured some things out, and that'll be the case going forward.
Yeah, and how do you feel about the weekend scenarios with who has to win to get BYU into a Big 12 championship game? There is a possibility one or the other upset has to happen. Do you have a feeling about either of those games and what might come to pass with all of that?
Yeah, I think Kansas State has a legitimate shot at beating Iowa State. I think that's probably BYU's best bet. The way Arizona State played the other day and the way they've been playing, I know it's a rivalry down at Arizona, but if you couple that with how poorly Arizona's been playing, I don't think Arizona will be able to topple the Sun Devils. So I think that Kansas State Iowa State game is a toss-up. Kansas State's got a lot of talent. They got a great quarterback. If they can cut down on turnovers, if they can get him out running, Avery Johnson is who I'm speaking of. And so I think I give Kansas State a more than a puncher's chance to beat Iowa State. I think that's BYU's best bet of moving on, assuming they handle Houston, which you just never know in November in college football.
Yeah, not anymore.
And it's always a tough Houston, and we just laid this out. We had Dave Nixon on. Houston's a very good defensive football team. They're miserable offensively, but those are scary teams because they can stay in a game, and if you make some errors down the stretch, they're close enough they can beat you. And I don't know, would you rather play a team that's terrible on offense and really good on defense, or a team that's moves the football but they can't stop anybody?
Yeah, that's a good question. Houston reminds me a lot of Utah. Really good defense, hasn't figured it out on offense totally yet. So, the fact that you're playing in that Lavelle Edwards Stadium, I think you would rather see a team that with a decent offense with a good defense and a great offense, or a poor defense, because let's face it, like looking at Arizona State, those turnovers is what really got them riled up, and especially that recovered pooch, or what do you call it?
He squibbed. Yeah, it was a hard squib. The plan's not to hit somebody, but like if you do, great. That's like a bonus. But it was to keep it on the ground. So,
well, Jay, we asked David Nixon this question. I want to get your opinion on it. Let's say the scenarios play out where Iowa State wins and Arizona State wins, so they're going to go play in Arlington. But BYU wins and they walk off the field with a 10-2 season. And is that a bummer? Is it a letdown? Or is it arguably the best 10-win season in the history of the program, considering their P4 and who they played?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head right there at the last sentence. I think the fact that they played all these P4s, it's the best 10-win season they've ever had, just because of, just like you said, the schedule, knocking off all these P4 teams in a row and beating Utah. I think one more win, and I think you can call it a special season, no matter what happens after that. So, for sure.
And I think Cougar fans might need to be reminded of that, right? Because expectations shifted as the team won, and then suddenly we'll just be grateful for a bowl game. It's like we're just so mad that we're not going to the Big 12 championship. It's funny how fans go, but hey, they read your stuff, and so that's important that they're caught up in all this emotion. What's your take on this football and now basketball, the uniqueness of what's going on? I mean, we're in a twilight zone 6-month period here in Provo.
Yeah, it's been phenomenal, and hats off to Tom Holmoe, who's kind of the architect of this, and brilliant move to bring in Kevin Young. And the Olympic sports, or like cross country, just sweeps the national championships. This is the golden age, really, of or maybe the dawn of the golden age. I know football hasn't had much gold in the last year, but I seriously think this BYU basketball team is potentially a Sweet 16 team. I mean, they've got to get some chemistry issues worked out, and maybe some perimeter defense and some other nitpicking of little things, but
some free throws, maybe some free throws.
Yeah, hit some free throws. But I think this is a tournament team, maybe a second weekend tournament team. So yeah, this is if you're a BYU fan, this is a great time. I mean, I've been covering them for 17 years, and there have been some good times and there's been some low times. So enjoy the good times. That's what I tell people.
Amen to that. Which is a bigger story? Like if we're going to, the story of the year so far, and we'll say that the 2 championships is pretty cool, because that hasn't happened in 20 years. But let's throw that one out, and I'm going to give you a multiple choice. Story of the year, Kevin Young, Yegor Demin in basketball, or is it Kalani Sitake, Jake Retzlaff in football?
I think by far it's got to be the football. I mean, football's king. It always will be at BYU, I think. No disrespect to what's going on with basketball, but they're what, 5-0. They really haven't beat a great team yet. And football has this football season, especially the way it kind of came out of the blue for a lot of people and the success and how well really Jake has been a catalyst in this. I mean, I know he's struggled the last few games, but he's been kind of the people ask me, how are they doing this? And I said, for one, Jake Retzlaff has played really, really well and gotten him there. So yeah, I would lean more to football being the big story of the year.
Deseret News sports writer Jay Drew on the Wise Guys, live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and wiseguys.com. How has social media changed the way a beat writer does his job? There's so much information out there. Not all of it's true. And we all hate getting beat on stories, so there's constant pressure to know what's going on. But what has social media done that's changed your job?
It's just night and day difference. First the internet changed the job. I'm old enough to be back before the internet, where all you had to worry about was the printed paper 7 days a week. But so that changed a lot. Obviously, we got the 24-hour news cycle with the internet, but social media has even changed that. And especially if you have, our editors don't really push social media as much as when I worked at the Salt Lake Tribune. It was kind of a bigger deal to them for some reason to establish a presence on social media and to be constantly tweeting, whatever. It's stress in the Deseret News, but maybe not as much. But still, it is, it's a big part of the job, and it's expected. And you can get yourself in a lot of trouble with some of the tweets. I've learned that you have to be really, really careful. But yeah, it's an added layer to the job that maybe some people don't realize, but it's a big part of the job.
Deseret News sports writer Jay Drews on the Wise Guys, live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and wiseguys.com with us. We're grateful to have him here. You graduated from the University of Utah, and then you covered the Utes. You just mentioned that for 3 decades for the Trib. And now your professional life revolves around covering BYU. How's that been, that transition?
Yeah, I didn't cover. I covered for the Trib. I covered mostly high school sports, and then in 2008, I started covering BYU. So that was Max Hall's junior year. Was my first year. Bronco was there, been there for about 4 or 5 years. So, yeah, when I switched over from the Trib to the Des News, I kept the same BYU beat. And then there was just a little section where for 3 years I did Utah basketball, and Jeff Call did BYU.
That's basketball. Right. That's what we're remembering. Yeah.
Kind of switched. Yeah. So that's I covered the Ute basketball program for 3 years, and I was there first year. Larry's last year, had to write about the firing of Larry and then the hiring of Craig Smith. So went through that, and then when Jeff Call retired or took a job with BYU, then I returned to covering BYU basketball again. So it's been interesting. I have a lot of respect for the Utah athletic program. Kind of got to see it on a different level there, and got to know Mark Harlan a little bit, and some of the other Utah leaders, and they're just like everybody else. They just want to see their programs succeed, and they'll do whatever they can to make that happen.
Jay, what do you say when a lot of times beat writers are seen as negative writers? It's always bad news. Like a TV reporter on the police beat, it's never about how good the police are, right? It's always about what just happened. And so then you get into that grind when we all get it. When someone would say, "Hey Jay, why are you so negative?" What do you tell them? Because you're in the business of cranking it out every day.
Yeah, I think a lot of times people focus on the negative and they don't realize some of the positive or feel good or stories that I write. I think I tell people all the time, I'm not a fan. I'm not. That's not what I'm paid to be. I'm supposed to be an objective journalist. If I see, I point out the good and the bad, and you know, people realize I did attend the University of Utah, graduated from the University of Utah, but that was hammered in my head way back when I first started the Tribune that we don't, favor one team over another. We write objectively and go from there. And I try to do that. If it comes across as too negative, you ask a bunch of Ute fans and they say I'm a BYU homer.
Right. Oh yeah,
Exactly.
it's totally
Exactly
in the eyes of the beholder.
You just can't win them all. You just try to do your job as best you can, and just realize that people are going to kind of see and believe what they're going to believe, and you just keep moving forward.
What's your favorite thing to write about? Like, if you could just pick, would you rather write a human interest story? Would you rather cover a game? Like, if you had your wish, what would you write about?
Well, the sport I'd write about, and this will probably shock you guys, but I love golf. I love writing about golf. So golf is, probably my favorite to cover. I like being outside and walking up and down the fairways, but that doesn't really pay the bills.
Yeah.
There's nothing like the thrill of like the other night of a thrilling college football finish. So I would probably just say, just covering college football games, the actual games themselves are just a riot. They're just so much fun. And there's a lot of other little things you do, the features, the in-between week stuff, what we call advances or follows. And those are okay. They're okay to do, fun to do, but they're just nothing that can replace the actual covering a game, writing about a game and what happened, and try to convey the excitement to people. It's that's what really gets your juices going.
You've got an article in the Deseret News at Deseret.com today on the fact that BYU hasn't been playing like a contender. We want them to show up and act like a championship team. They haven't been playing like that for a while, and that's what they'll have to address in practice this week to get ready for Saturday. Here's a question that you probably don't get asked very often, but on the Wise Guys, you will get asked. Tell us about your family.
Yeah, so my wife and I are empty nesters. My wife Tammy and we had 3 kids. Our oldest daughter Kylie graduated from BYU, and she's married to Dick Hunsaker's nephew, the old Utah Valley coach. So she just had her 3rd child. So that was my 4th grandchild.
Nice.
And, then I have twins, a boy-girl twins. The twin girl is over in Italy. Her husband's in the army, and they're stationed in Vicenza, Italy.
Wow.
And he's a paratrooper, so he jumps out of airplanes. And they just had a baby girl that's a year old. And then her twin brother, my only son, Braxton, he is a kind of a thrill seeker, adventurous type of guy. He just finished backpacking the entire Continental Divide Trail. It stretches from the Canadian border to the Mexican border. He went through Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, over the Rocky Mountains, and he just finished that up. It took him nearly 6 months, but he did it. So,
wow. And it wasn't against his will. He actually signed up for that.
On purpose?
He did it on purpose. That was his second major one. He did the PCT, Pacific Crest Trail, where he went northbound. He started in the Mexico border, went through California, Oregon, and Washington. And he did that with his twin sister and her husband. So my daughter and my son-in-law, they did that in 2018. And same thing, it took them nearly 5 months, but they did it.
Wow.
Wow, that is amazing. I was trying to, was it 4 grandkids now? Did I add it up right?
I got 4 grandkids. Yeah, my oldest daughter has the 3, and then my daughter in Italy
4.
Sweet, that's the best.
Isn't being a grandpa the best job ever?
Oh yeah, it's hilarious. It's a lot of fun. We used to live in Draper, but when we started having the grandkids, we had to be closer to them. So I moved up to Bountiful, North Salt Lake area, and at that time I thought BYU was going to move to a lot more Zoom-based interviews and stuff. It was right after COVID and all that, but they didn't. And then, as I told you guys before, I got put back on the BYU basketball beat. So I really increased my commute.
It's a lovely commute,
I
Jay.
have to tell you, Jay, I lived in Kaysville.
Trade off because of the grandkids.
Yeah, Dave did it the opposite direction from here to Salt Lake City with KSL for all those years. I was coming down from Kaysville with all the stuff I was doing down here and commuting down multiple times a week. We finally moved to Provo, and I kept track of my mileage every year. The first year we moved to Provo, I drove 27,000 less miles than the year before that we lived in Kaysville. So that's what's in front of you when you guys want to get back down here. Get down to Provo.
Yeah. It took me 15 years to convince Blaine that he should move down here.
We'll take you down here, Jay. You can come down here. We'll help you find a place. It'll all be good.
Before we hit you up with 5 questions, Jay, I will say that Jay's a patient man because we've played golf together several times. And he didn't throw his clubs at me, which he could have because I'm not that great. But Jay can play golf.
We got to give Dave credit, though. I played with Dave a long time ago, and he decided he liked the game a couple years ago, and he's taken it up in a big way, and he can play now. And
just a little bit.
No, he can.
I'm going to be better.
We had a decent team there at the BYU golf thing at Cedar Hills. We got to win it next year.
I'm going to be better next year.
There you go.
You have my word for that. All right. 5 questions is presented by Strategy Square, delivering connection, clarity, and confidence in business and marketing strategies, owned and operated by a BYU alum who's helping the wise guys conquer the world. That's our pitch phrase. Here come 5 questions, rapid fire at you. You ready?
Yep.
I'm ready.
Here we go. Your favorite sports movie?
Oh, Field of Dreams.
Who just said that the other day? I can't remember, but that is a great one. Love it.
Yeah, that's good.
Number 2, your favorite singer or band?
Favorite band's probably the Eagles. Favorite singer, Johnny Cash, if I can have 2.
Oh, yeah. We'll give you 2.
That's old school.
That is really
Johnny
old school.
Cash.
Well, and the Eagles is not old school, but I love the Eagles.
You kind of have a Johnny Cash black shirt on right now in honor of the...
Yeah, well, got to stay neutral. Didn't want to wear red or blue.
The wise man.
Jay, you'd be... On election night, Dave and I were calling a basketball game, and I wore a red, white, and blue tie.
It was the wrong move.
I took a beating on social media because there was red in my tie.
Yeah.
And I just said, hey, people, America, please. But no.
I told Blaine, I said, Blaine, you're not a newcomer here. You know better than that.
Okay, number 3, your favorite breakfast cereal.
Oh, boy. Yeah. Probably Cinnamon Life.
Yes.
All right.
That's
Cinnamon
my favorite.
Life.
I just had it before I came. I just had it before I came to the show.
I like to put a little sugar on Cinnamon Life just to, balance out the cinnamon.
Cinnamon Life. You're the first person that's ever chosen my favorite cereal.
Wow.
Jay, that's it.
How about that?
I'm taking you golfing when the weather gets good. So, your favorite story that you've ever written.
Oh, wow. That's a tough one. I'd have to, just recently I wrote about Jake Retzlaff, his Jewish, roots and all that when he was backing up Keaton Slovis. That one kind of stands out. Maybe that's recency bias. Way back in the day, when I covered high school sports for the Salt Lake Tribune, I went down to Delta and I did a big article. It was like a really in-depth article on the rivalry in wrestling between Delta and Millard. And just how those two communities and how much it meant to them and all the weird things they did. Like they would put dead jackrabbits on all the stop signs in between Fillmore and Delta. Just because Delta's obviously the rabbits.
Yeah.
And just all the crazy things that went in. And that was just a really fun story to write. And that one just sticks out as kind of a really fun story that I kind of uncovered, I thought.
Nice.
Very nice. Okay, and the fifth question is your favorite Thanksgiving memory.
Wow. That's got to be a new one. You guys don't ask that one every week.
Well, it's seasonal.
We do. We usually add one that's just like, it's specific to a certain time of year.
It's Thanksgiving week.
It's Thanksgiving week.
So this isn't really a favorite memory, but it is a memory. When I was dating my wife, I brought her to our house for Thanksgiving dinner, my parents' house. And we went in the backyard and we played a turkey bowl, and there was probably 14, 15 of us playing. And I ended up getting in a fight with my brother. My wife is watching out the kitchen window because it was snowy and cold. She's watching this, and we weren't even engaged yet. She was just at my date. and and I got in a fight with my brother, and that was pretty embarrassing. And so that's my most memorable.
Who won the fight?
Somehow you still were able to close the deal, so I'm assuming you won the fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would call it a draw. It's a draw for the Drews.
Drew, that's the greatest Thanksgiving memory ever. The fight out of the football game. We've all had fights at the football game. That's for sure.
Hey, there's one question that's on the chat that is an interesting one. It said, Eric Johnson asked, "Hey, how do fans contact sports writers? Their emails aren't disclosed anymore. And do writers read comments that come in?" And he says, "Hey, I acknowledge that there's some wackos out there." So he acknowledges that, but asks the question, like, do you ever read the comments that people put in? And if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, did they just go directly to the Des News, or what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, the best way is my email, jdrew@deseretnews.com. That's, I think, on my Twitter feed, but they can direct message me on Twitter is another way. I think I've pretty much open. I'm able to be direct messaged. And then as far as the comments, to be honest with you, I'm not in the habit of reading the comments on my stories. Very rarely do I go read them. So, maybe I should do that, but a lot of times it just devolve into these.
Okay. Yeah, we let them go crazy. Yeah,
I learned a long time ago not to read the comments, even as a reporter, anchor at KSL, and would have a story about something, and in the comments would be something else that had nothing to do with the something, and then it's like they said, "Hey, don't go there," and so I never have. I think you just don't need that stress in your life.
Yeah, I think Eric's coming from a good place where he's thinking, hey, if we had a really good idea for a cool story, how would we reach you and give you that idea? And I think you'd be open to that, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Just email me, or like I said, direct message me on Twitter.
Perfect. There you go, Eric.
Hey, that B above your head, that's not too far off the Deseret News logo of the beehive type thing, right? So it all, that makes you a company man right there. I was just sitting there going, that's just part of the family.
He brought the
logo.
I
have to say, my wife enjoyed beehives and bees when I was at the Tribune before I.
Oh, she did?
Because I went to the Desert News.
Okay. Hey, it just sounded good. It just sounded good. Hey,
I have to add that, and you guys, I wonder what you guys. Do your wives ever read your work, watch your work, or read your articles or anything?
They don't even know where we are tonight.
Yeah. No, every once in a while, Jay, so what's funny is every once in a while, one of them will show up in the chat and make a comment, and we're like,
okay, they're watching.
Okay, everybody,
watch what we
that's
say.
My wife. So, but they watch our stuff, but they try not to critique it, I think. So
yeah, I was just going to mention my wife's probably written or read maybe 5 of my articles in 30 plus years of doing this. So she's just not a sports fan whatsoever.
Listen, when my wife reads my articles, she'll find the one grammar mistake that I made and then make a point about that. I'm like, what about the other 5,000 words that were right?
You know what? I think Brendan and I will talk sports sometimes, but so I just as a little parallel. Today I ran into Jake Retzloff, and he's I didn't even talk to him about football.
Yeah.
Because I just felt like everybody's hitting him and talking to him about football, right? And so I just gave him a hug, and I'm like, were you okay? You come out of that thing in one piece? Because he was pretty beat up a couple of weeks ago, and he was healthy. He says, no, Blaine, I appreciate you asking that. I'm feeling bad. I didn't get banged up too much. I got hit a couple of times, but didn't get banged up. I'm actually feeling better this week. I could tell he's a little down, And so sometimes I think my wife's like that with me. Hey, you're talking sports all the time. I'm going to talk to you about something else.
Yeah.
And I felt Jake needed somebody to just give him a hug and talk about something else today. So that's what I did for Jake today.
That's good. Michael on the stream says, Dave, how can you say you don't read the comments? You read every one on this program. I go, well, that's what this program is.
This is different.
This is a live stream.
This is a live stream
with your
chat.
Comments.
And you guys are awesome to us on the chat, by the way.
Yeah, almost everything's friendly,
you guys are great.
which we love.
Yeah.
So. We'll see you Saturday. And, of course, We'll see you throughout. Are you going to San Diego with the basketball team? Did you get that gig, and then are you coming back?
No, I'm not going. We had a conversation with our sports editor, Kent Condon, and we just decided, just because of the tough turnaround, at that time we didn't know if the BYU Houston football game was going to be in the day or the night.
Right.
We do now. So I'm just going to cover that via television remotely, the 2 games from San Diego.
Okay. Well, we will see you
Which
Saturday.
is nice. I get to spend Thanksgiving at home.
Absolutely.
We'll see you Saturday night at the game, right?
Hey, and happy Thanksgiving. Thanks so much for coming on our show.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Thanks for thinking of me.
Right.
You got it.
Thanks, Jay.
You can read everything that Jay Drew writes in the Deseret News, Deseret.com. He's an outstanding writer.